Back here on another episode of the TerpTalk podcast. On tonight's show, we have the Terps MC himself, Joel D. Smith, joined Jordan and I. We can take a walk down SECU, Bird, Maryland, whatever stadium name you want to call it, memory lane, as the Terps MC gives us the inside view on how he got into his role with the Terps and his last 21 years on the sidelines of SECU Stadium. We take a little bit of a look back to Nebraska, and then we get to a non-rev report, Terps in the NFL, and finally a preview of the Terps trip out to Westwood to take on the UCLA Bruins. Let's have a podcast. The TerpTalk podcast is brought to you by VinorX. VinorX is Maryland-made, started in Rockville more than 30 years ago, and like you, VinorX supports the Terps. VinorX believes in teamwork, preparation, and showing up every day, values that make winning teams great, and values that drive VinorX to support your business. VinorX is focused on winning, helping businesses succeed with enterprise technology, human first. That's why VinorX proudly supports Maryland sports. VinorX, we make your company work. Back here on another midweek podcast, Jordan. Lots to get to. We got an awesome interview with Joel D. Smith, the Terps football MC, coming up. But let's get right into it. Let's get to some non-rev action.
Indeed, and as always, Mason, we will start with women's soccer. The Terps dropped 2 games last week at number 7 Iowa and at Nebraska on Thursday and Sunday, respectively, both by a score of 2-0. The Terps will get the chance to snap their losing streak this week with Michigan on Thursday and Ohio State on Sunday, both at Ludwig. Mason, the Terps on a bit of a slide here, but, positive still for that program.
Yeah, we're coming crashing back down to earth. Over with field hockey, the Terps beat number 10 Iowa in a win that they really needed. They've had a lot of opportunities against these top-tier teams, but haven't been able to come through. They come through last week with the win over the Hawkeyes 2-1, and they're back into the top 10, up to number 10 from number 12, which they were last week.
Yeah, Terps coming through in the clutch after a third-quarter goal from Iowa, scoring twice quickly to win that game. With the win, the Terps moved to 3-1 Big Ten play and are second in the conference to number 1 Northwestern, who's 11-1 right now. Huge weekend for that team coming up, Mason, with home games against Indiana, which is kind of but that Northwestern team visits College Park on Sunday at 1 p.m. Look, Commanders are at 4 p.m. this week. If you can make it out there, I'm sure the team would appreciate it as they try to take number 1 in the conference.
Yeah, coming over to volleyball, Jordan, this is the miserable one of the non-rev report at the moment. 0-6 in Big Ten play. They fell to Illinois and number 7 Wisconsin over the weekend. They'll have an opportunity for a win with the Rutgers coming in on Wednesday, but things are bad right now in the Pavilion.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like it might be over for Adam Hughes and the gang there, but maybe they'll turn it around still. The game Wednesday on BTN, and the Terps will fly to Michigan State on Sunday. And finally, Mason, the best team on campus right now, men's soccer, scored a huge win over the weekend. It's your team, Mason. Talk about the Terps.
Yeah, they actually, I think, won this game 4-0, Jordan, but only 2 of them counted. 2 get called back on some questionable offsides calls. The Terps, they keep rolling. They're playing right now. It's all up at 0. They're playing number 18 Rutgers Scarlet Knights at Ludwig. Shame that the kids are still on that fall break, because this is one of those nights at Ludwig that are just unforgettable. But hopefully they pull that one out and we continue to roll. They're 1 point behind the Washington Huskies right now in the Big Ten standings.
Yeah, Mason, just an update. Rutgers is number 13 now with the new rankings that came out earlier today, and Terps up to number 8 in the country. One of 4 undefeated teams left standing in college soccer. Yeah, that's a big one on BTN right now. Unfortunately, can't tell you what's going on, but please check Terps, see if the Terps defeated the Scarlet Knights. Mason, before we move on to the interview with Joel D, which was truly phenomenal, and if you're not planning to stick around for some reason, I highly recommend checking it out. It's really good. We do need to address the fact that our last episode actually caused quite a stir in the TerpTalk community, which we have built up, and I appreciate everybody who contributes. But yeah, people were not happy with some of the comments we made regarding the fan base in particular, Mason. We both said a lot. I'll let you draw the rebuttal here first.
I mean, I don't have one. People are entitled to their opinion. That's one of the reasons why we do this show. That's one of the reasons why we leave the comments open. Look, I've watched this team for a long time, just about as long as I've been alive. And my views and opinions, just like we prompt before TerpTalk goes on the air, are those. And I mean, I like that there's disagreement about it. I like that there's conversation, that these conversations are and continue to take place on the various forums that are out there, with the fans and on this podcast. And look, I mean, I get heated just like a lot of you when we lose. And it's actually a topic of our interview about what it really kind of means to be a fan and enjoy game day at a place, with Joel D. So um, it is what it is. And to the other show that we get to do, our post game show over on YouTube, like they're instant takes, right? We haven't gone back and watched the game. We watched the game either from the field or from our seats or from wherever, they kind of let us when we're on the road. And you don't see everything that you see on TV. You don't see that, but you do feel game day. And what I felt specifically on the comments that had to do with the fans is that we don't have the fan support to be the people that we think we are and we want to be. We certainly have it in basketball. We certainly have it in soccer, and we certainly have it in some of our other sports where our venues are literally considered some of the best on the Eastern Seaboard, if not some of the best in the country. We don't have it on SECU Stadium on Saturdays. Jordan, I'll leave it at that.
I think very well said. I'm not going to use my other comment, which I often say that also is referenced in some of the comments. But yes, I agree with you. Like, they are comments. This is an opinion show. We do try to be as objective as we can. But, when we say these are opinions, we usually lead in with that. And I appreciate the fact we're during discussion, and it needs to continue because Mason's right. The way we are acting in terms of the team expectations and the fan support do not line up. And until they do, I think we do need to temper expectations a little bit because it does affect people. I mean, you heard Cam Moore was talking about it with the Titans this week, where he was saying, yeah, it'll be fun when more fans are come out because they fired Brian Callahan, which sucks for Brian Callahan, but he talks about that. The players see when the seats are empty, folks, and if you have an opinion about team performance and you're not in the seats, just know it does make a difference, and I think I'll leave it there.
No doubt. I mean, people look at that. They see that when they come to school here. They see that when they're making their decisions, and we just can't seem to quite grasp that ourselves. And look, one last thing that I got to say out there, and has to do with probably a lot of people that aren't listening to our show anymore, our Nebraska friends. Dylan Raiola had 13 touchdowns and 11 interceptions last year. He has 16 touchdowns and 5 picks this year. 6 of his touchdowns come against a FCS team and potentially the worst FBS team in college football. The guy's thrown an interception in every Big Ten game, including 3 against a Maryland team that clearly, based on your comments, you don't think is at the same level as you. So let's just let some more time play out before we deem this guy the king of college football, please.
Very well said. Let's go over to Joel D.
Now we welcome in the man on the sidelines of Maryland football, the Terps MC, Joel D. Joel, thanks for jumping on with us tonight.
Looking forward to it, guys. Let's have some fun.
Joel, we were just talking, and 21 years on the sidelines of Maryland football. What's the backstory? How did you get into it? Let's start there.
So if they ever do a 30 for 30 on sideline announcing, I got to make sure I get my part in there. So a million years ago, technically 1994, they had this weird idea for the indoor soccer team called the Washington Warthogs to have a roving wireless PA announcer. It had never been done before in a team sport. There's a little bit of stuff going on with indoor volleyball that was traveling around the country, indoor beach volleyball. They had an announcer, but nothing like this. So there's a tryout. I was 20. I went to it. I was at the University of Maryland as a broadcast journalism major. I went on a whim to White Flint Mall. That doesn't even exist anymore, I don't think. And beat all these old heads who were just doing traditional announcing, and I was willing to run around and do all this stuff. We had our learning pains with that, growing pains, but we eventually figured it out. And now every team everywhere has somebody to do this, but we were the first. And so it was kind of cool that we did that. So I did that for indoor soccer in Washington and in Baltimore. Also, in TV journalism. So I did that as well. And eventually when I came back to the area, one of my buddies who used to be part of that in indoor soccer, Brian Ullman, who was assistant athletic director, was like, you know what, we want to get back into making these games a little more fun again. This was 2005. Let's try some stuff. So, we've been a little more or less interactive throughout the years and just let the game play out. But Brought me back. I thought I'd do it for a year or two. When I got to 4 years, I thought those poor kids, they have to see me their entire college careers. And now here we are 21 seasons later. I started this before my kids were born, and now I got a high school senior. So it's pretty wild.
It's funny you said those kids saw you for 4 years in 2005 because we started going to games in 2006. And I was thinking before this, we've seen you our entire Maryland football lives. So that's kind of cool.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, it used to vary. They had different people every once in a while. If you guys remember Special K,
yeah.
on the side. Yep. Yeah, I mean, he did it way back in the day before me, and I watched him when I was a student. He even came back for homecoming as like a retro, because he was like the 80s. Different guys did it different times. I never imagined I'd be the guy on the field. And then, if you love the school, there's no better spot than to be right there on the sidelines. You live and die with every play. You get to see it real close. Like once again, my family's come to a lot of games over the years. My kid has grown up, in that stadium pretty much. I have pictures of him in the end zone as baby. So all that's been great. To be able to stay with it, it's tough sometimes. You get busy as a father when your kids start getting busy on fall weekends, but I've been able to work it out and stick through.
So, Joel, you've been doing this for a long time, and Mason and I often joke that we've seen the worst of Maryland football in our time, and I guess you have too. But you've stayed committed to this. You stay passionate about it. How do you keep the energy up when you've seen some pretty lean years?
No, it's unfortunately true. If you look at the span of Maryland football, we might be in the toughest 20-year stretch ever, right? So that's hard. You keep thinking next year's the year, and you got to accept the highlights. One of my theories on life is taking the highlights. I used to be a sports director, so what are the highlights of the game? What are those moments you're going to remember? Last year, I think we all remember, storming the field for USC. That's a highlight, right? And even though the season itself forgettable, that's the moment. For me, it was the players. Certain players just stood out, and you remember that. Vernon Davis was off the charts athlete, and you remember that. Stephon Diggs, every time he touched the ball, the whole entire place stood up and got excited. And so there's been those moments over time, and then you're just hoping that you're there for the next one. But the players and their individual accomplishments sometimes makes it worthwhile. And then it really does, and this is what the big schools are like. I've covered a lot of Penn State stuff. You gotta eventually want to be there for more than just the outcome. Yes, you want them to win every single game, and it's tough when they don't win, and it's excruciating sometimes they don't win. But hopefully you enjoy being there with your friends, with the traditions that you have. Your family always goes to games, and remember that. For my son and I, one of the things we do is when we're leaving, I don't know if you guys ever go to the parking lot, but there's a guy out there selling Krispy Kreme donuts. And he's always yelling, "The highlights on, the highlights on." And that becomes something my son and I yell at each other throughout the week, or we're getting ready to go. And when we see him, we give him high fives and we go. So we're creating memories as a family that we're going to remember beyond all the tough losses. And there's been a lot of tough losses. Yes.
That is so funny. Today at lunch, we were there with Wayne, who's our dad, who obviously and we were talking about the guys selling the Krispy Kreme donuts in the parking lot.
He's the
like
man.
4 hours ago, I kid you not, we were talking about that guy.
Yeah.
And how it's just changed now that we've started doing this, so you don't get out when the guys still out there selling them. And when we were kids, we used to always get them for like $2-3 at the end when they were straggling to sell the last couple boxes.
Right. That's how you do it at the end. And before that, obviously people are tailgating and loving every minute of it. It's a time to unwind, it's to hang out with friends. For me, I see people I haven't seen in years. This last game, a former coworker of mine in Baltimore, who used to be a cheerleader for a couple of years as well, like 04, 05. And so I hadn't seen her for probably 5 years, but she's like, "Hey, I'm going to the game. You're going to be there." Yeah, we met up ahead of time. So, I mean, those things have to count for something. It can't just be wins and losses if you're a true fan. If you're a sports fan only, yeah, you're going to come when the team's hot and when you want to see them win. But if you're a Maryland fan, you got to find other reasons to go and enjoy it, support everybody. And yes, you can be totally frustrated and mad when they don't win, but you got to find other reasons to go.
No doubt about that. And you mentioned the overall fan support and where that's at. You've seen it. You mentioned the 21 years, obviously kind of the height of, or right on the edge of the height of Maryland fandom to kind of where we are now.
Yeah.
What's your take on the whole thing? And, those of us that were at the game, on Saturday. Kind of saw your hype speech there at the beginning of the fourth quarter, which I thought was a great add to it. Instead of the Maryland spell-out going into that, I thought you were a much better piece to that. But what do you kind of make of the fan support now, not only here, but in all of college sports, because you do get around to some other schools as well?
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about Maryland first, but I mean, we know I grew up in the DC area, okay? On the Maryland side. We know that there's a lot to do. And so it's a fickle fan base. I used to work in Iowa, Big Ten country. They have nothing else there except for the college team. That's basically their pro team. So they support it like it's a pro team. And they also have the tradition of going with their families over the years. They always go, whether it's Iowa or Iowa State. That's a Midwest thing. Penn State, it's a tradition. They're proud of their 100, 105, 106 strong, whatever it is, that go over the years. We saw the results of their expectations this week as well. Maryland's different. And so, they kind of demand you're good. The Capitals almost got sold a long, long time ago. They weren't good. And no one was going. They got good. Saved the team. What happens with the Orioles this year? They're way down in attendance because there's expectations. They're not meeting them. You see the Nationals. So we're in an area. There's a lot to do. If you like theater, if you like concerts, there's stuff to do. You don't have to go watch a bad team. And so that's where it's tough. If for Maryland, they don't have the built-in tradition of people going no matter what. And so you're always going to fight that, and you have to embrace it. I think Jim Smith understands this, that you have to play a different way here, and you have to give people something to see or an experience they're going to enjoy a little more than the game sometimes if that doesn't go the way you want. But yeah, I've seen empty stadiums. I've seen where the other team has just as many fans as we do sometimes. Especially in the Big Ten, sometimes it goes that way. Penn State's, really a tough time sometimes. Are we in the right direction? I think Smith gets it. So I'm hopeful when it comes to that. But we're always going to be fighting. Are you good? What else could I do with my time and money? And time. I'm there early, but it's a whole day for a 3:30 game. You're leaving early. You're getting there like 1:30, 2:30, whatever. Game takes 3.5 hours. And then you got to get home and fight traffic. I mean, it is a full day that you've committed to this. Not like basketball, you're in, you're out. So I understand the commitment level, and you want to see something good when you're there. But you got to make everything else kind of worth coming to as well.
So, Joel D., one thing you mentioned before the show is you want to talk about Penn State. I mean, everyone wants to talk about Penn State right now. They made one of the boldest moves I think we've seen in sports history, firing James Franklin. We'll talk about it, too, on our own segment of the show. But what's your take on it?
It was necessary. I like James Franklin as a person. I remember interviewing him when he was at Maryland, right? He was the offensive coordinator. He was the coach in waiting. I'm sure your viewers, your listeners understand this. Things got complicated with Friedgen not, leaving on the same timeline that they wanted him to. And so he eventually left, was, great in Vanderbilt. And he has helped take the Penn State program that, Bill O'Brien helped get out of the doldrums after the scandal, but took it to this level. But look at me. This is the level he took it to 8 years ago. It's never gotten past this level. And at a certain point, they're putting more and more money into it, but still stuck at this level. This had to happen. So people are criticizing it, saying, oh, what if you get a worse coach? Doesn't matter. This was untenable at this point. The negativity was overwhelming at this point. And so even if you make the wrong choice with the next coach, this was the right decision now. So they had to do it. I like James Franklin. He graduates kids. He's accountable. Nice guy, really, really nice guy, personable. But you had to do it at this point. That's where they are in their expectations and their money and their investment. They had to make this change no matter who the next coach is. Even if he doesn't have the same record, it's worth change. You have to do change. No whole insanity thing. They had to change something here. And 3 in a row made it easy.
So on that same note, one of Mason's favorite topics on the show has been expectations when it comes to Maryland.
Yep.
And you're seeing it a lot right now. The same question being positive, Penn State's being positive, Maryland. What's your take on it? We have our opinion, and we're actually pretty pro Loxley, which we get a lot of flack for. But what's your take, Joel D?
Be more specific. My take on if the expectations are too high or if they're right.
Yes, are they too high for the fan base?
You've seen the cyclical memes they do, great recruiting class, 4-0. Big Ten schedule. We'll get them next year. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, the expectations were low this year, which is why I think people got so excited when they overperformed the first, 3-4 weeks. And that got people really excited. And they start looking at the calendar and they start counting wins. And if we get this one, we get that one. Then game day comes. I've heard this a million times. I've bought in sometimes. I told everybody, hold on, we never know. So, yeah, the expectation game is tough. It is what you deal with as a coach. And I think they had the expectations correct at the beginning of the season. A lot of young guys. Next year's the year you're really looking for some more. But then we got going and you see the schedule and other teams and they're playing so well. That was tough. I'm going to jump in on you guys here. My theory on why Maryland has been stuck in the Big Ten lower level for a while. Every recruit coming out of high school thinks they're going to be in the pros, but they choose the school they go to based on, does that team put my position in the pros? So Maryland, that is defensive backs, a few DNs here and there, tight end, wide receiver, right? That's what Maryland puts in the pros. Mm-hmm. So if you're a kid coming out of high school, 3 or 4 or 5 star, whatever, it doesn't matter. You think you're going to the pros, you want to go to the school, does that. We have not put enough linemen in the pros. And there's a few now. You got DJ Glaze and some other guys, but there weren't enough traditionally. So we've seen so many teams that are willing to take these guys in, and they're willing to sit 2 or 3 years before they even play, because they'll eventually be on one of these Big Ten programs that blossoms, and then they're with Wisconsin or Iowa or Michigan State or Michigan and Penn State, and then they eventually get to the pros where they can start for us. So how do you change that is part of the problem. NIL money could be part of that. You can get paid early. You can show what you can do. You can be good here, then get paid somewhere else. But we're just too thin on the lines. And so it's hard for us to compete when we have 6 or 7, maybe 8 guys who are Big Ten, like caliber, ready to play the Big Ten grueling schedule, where other teams have like 12, 13, 14. And eventually, during the season, you're going to have some injuries. And so now you're even thinner. And that's what we've seen so many seasons with Maryland. Great starts. Guys are healthy. Hit the Big Ten schedule. A couple of injuries come, and we don't have the depth to maintain against these teams that have all that depth and talent on the lines. So that's where the proof is in the pudding. In the Big Ten, you got to have great lines. We're getting there at times. I love the defensive line this year. There's really some promise on offensive line. But, yeah, what are you going to do about that situation moving forward? I think they get it, and the portal can help you cheat on that a little bit. But until we get the lines right, we're going to be stuck in this cycle, I think, a little bit longer.
Yeah, no doubt. I 100% agree with you. And I felt like last year was where we kind of reached the peak of that, where the patching through the portal just didn't pan out.
No.
And we were kind of all left holding the bag for it. And you see year 2 for some of these guys, it works out. But
yeah,
last year really showed when it wasn't like Gaudier Edjay and Corey Bullock. They tried the FCS route, and it didn't work. And this year you take a step forward, and they brought the 8 guys in 2 years back now on the offensive line. But it's really yet to fully mature.
Yeah, it's the right idea. But I mean, I've been on field level all these years. Mm-hmm. I was amazed that Talia got the ball off. Like, first of all, a little bit shorter, right? So him looking over these linemen, trying to find his gaps, and doing it with 3 seconds or less, where every other team is just sitting back there, pad, look, like Drew Aller, and then eventually throw to somebody who's wide open maybe. He was – I know we give him credit for being the best Maryland quarterback in a long time. He was better than you think, because he had to do it fast while about to get crushed for half the season, and he still produced a lot. Obviously, the all-time yardage guy in the Big Ten, but it was amazing at field level to watch that. And I'm just going to jump ahead. Malik Washington's throw on 3rd down on the last drive, trying to get into field goal position, one of the best throws I've ever seen. Have you guys broken that one down?
Yeah, we did in the last episode.
Yep.
It was ridiculous. He couldn't even follow through. He got smashed from both sides, laid it in 2 levels in there as he got laid out. It was unreal. It would have been nice to get a call on the targeting. I don't really think it was, but that would have been beautiful to get right into field goal range. But yeah, I think Malik is special. He's so accurate. Way too many drops this year, but you got to be excited about him. And I'm hoping he becomes one of those players I was talking about before, that no matter how the season goes, you can remember him as being a highlight. And then I saw him there, and now I get to root for him on Sundays. And those are some of the things I look forward to still.
So we'll get back to this season, but as a longtime Maryland fan and attendee, we've been playing this game a lot. It's the 75th anniversary, of SECU Stadium. What's your best and worst CQ memories?
So I remember when I was in high school, Bird Stadium, as it was called then, still had the rubberized track, and it was falling apart. And I like grabbed a piece of it and took it home because I thought that was kind of cool. I was there for an indoor event down at the Armory. Um, so it had, that level of stuff there. I only went to a couple of games as a kid. Watched Boomer, I think, once. And then in college, oh man, I remember this one. It's not a great memory, but it's a memory. Going against Joe Paterno his last year there before we kind of like ended this Penn State rivalry for a while. Somebody threw a beer on the field right after Penn State scored. Probably 94, if I had to guess. And he saw that, and Joe Paterno went crazy, and they poured it on. They won something like 72-10 or something like that. So that was awful. There was a great 2-point conversion return that we had, I think, against Clemson, guessing around 2008 maybe, that tied that game late. So those were amazing, just single moment memories. But back in the day, we used to do the slow motion wave, the fast wave. We really, had a great time in the stands as well. So I miss all those times. We've got some new traditions that I like. The flag drop is unbelievable. We're starting some other things as well. But the individual players is what I remember the most. Stephon Diggs just touching the ball and people going nuts. And he was the most dangerous guy. Linebackers were throwing to him and he was still producing. You guys remember that, right? I mean, It was ridiculous.
Yeah, 100%.
It was ridiculous. I don't know. That's kind of what comes to mind right away. It's been so many years that we haven't had those defining wins, unfortunately, where you go, that was the day that they did this. They qualified for bowl games a couple of times. That's been good. But it's these blackouts have been a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Blackouts, you'd rather black out than go to the game sometimes. I mean, it's fun. I know everyone gets to get dressed up and it's a good theme, but our success rate on blackouts has been really rough.
It definitely has. Joel D, I'll do a special one for you. What is the go-to game that you run on the sidelines? What's the all-time favorite, and what's the one that hasn't worked out?
Man, I really enjoyed the dress up this past week, especially the lederhosen and everything else. That was ridiculous. That was just pure fun. And this one freshman kid has weaseled his way into 3 different games to get on the field this year.
What?
Yeah, his name's Rock. I keep saying he's going to be my co-host or something. He's a freshman. He's always in the front. He's into the game. He's affable. He's likable, and he just smiles. And we have different marketing people for different games choosing people, and he's been chosen by 3 different marketing people. So he did the punt once. He did the dress up one. He did the throw for dough. Throw for dough is always interesting because I try to tell them, guys, you can do the chest pass might be a little more consistent. If you watch the big stuff they do, the Dr. Pepper Challenge, those might be more consistent, but you do you. And sometimes they're halfway through, then they freak out, and then they go like this, and then they go halfway, and then they freak out. So those are always fun. People liked the CQ Bucks last year, where they had to go out there and collect all the poster boards that were out there.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, I think people like those. And I still like the field goal kicks. Because everyone thinks they can make those, and until they watch somebody do it, and then seeing them either boot or cheer. We haven't made one of those, I think, and we don't do them every game. But the field goal kick hasn't been made, I think, in 8 to 10 years. It's ridiculous.
The one kid absolutely smashed that punt on Saturday too.
So I talked to usually I interview him ahead of time. Hey, did you play or whatever? So he kicked in his high school.
Okay.
And he crushed that thing. The first guy did okay. He kicked it from the 30 down to the 2. Okay. And then this guy kicks it way out of the end zone, like a 40-yard spiral. Yeah, that was fun. We had a lot of good games. I mean, I know the game didn't finish on the field the way we wanted, but it was entertaining on a lot of levels. I think people had a good time in general.
So, Joel,
the throw for dough
for a while, and I'm kind of familiar with how these games go. But for people who don't know, can you walk through the game production side of things? You get there early, you got the whole script and the rundowns. Talk us through that.
Well, they get it to me earlier in the week, so I can at least see if there's anything weird. By now, I'm kind of on cruise control. I've said all of these announcements, most of them, either all season or maybe even 5 or 10 seasons, right? So I look for the differences, and sometimes it's in the band. 2 games ago, it was a salute to Bollywood, so I had to learn a lot of pronunciations for that one. I don't know if you guys heard it this past week. They had it was music of the DMV, and they started with the Muppet Show honoring Kermit and his Jim Henson connection, and they asked can you do a Kermit impression? And I was like, hi ho there, this is a Kermit the Frog getting ready for the mighty sound of Maryland. So I did it. And so those are the different things that I look for, is like, what's different this week? But I'll see that. I'll see who the honorary captains are. That's always fun for me. It's usually, someone from the past. It's kind of cool. And then when we get there, I start the first announcements an hour ahead of time. When we get the contestants there, I pre-interview them just to learn something about them that might be interesting, where they're from, what their major is, what grade they're in, and then tell them how to do the game. But at this point, like, there is an assistant with me, but I've done this for so long that I'm telling everybody where to go, and get him out there, getting in communication with the camera guy. Hey, you're with me at this time. Get ready for the next break. Bring him out here, and here we go. So everyone's replaceable for sure, but I hope before they replace me, they let me train the next person, because there's a lot of little things that people don't know unless they've done it. And so there you go. I tried to do this a few years ago. I've never told anybody this. I tried to phase myself out a few years ago. It was getting real busy at home. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it anymore. And so I said, bring in, some journalism students. Let's let them work in. They can see how it's done. Maybe one of them clicks and they want to do this. I'll kind of train them up, and we'll see who we like at the end of the year. We kind of did a little bit of it. It never really, got to there. And then my son started really liking coming to games. And so it made it easier. He came for most of the games after that. So that was the last time I almost got out. And coming back from COVID was weird, right? That was the year I didn't really do anything because there was no fans. So they didn't need me to talk during the breaks. So I didn't go to games that year. So that was a decision point as well. Like, are we coming back or not? But every year I say one more year, and here we are.
Joel, last one from me. What would be the one tradition you either want to see brought back, or the one you want to see them push more during the game?
Well, it seems they like the pep-up speech. I'm glad you guys liked it too. So I think we're going to do a little more of that, which I did many years ago. It was kind of, when I first came back, we were doing a lot of interactive stuff with the crowd, right? My mic was kind of hot most of the time, and I could just go for it. And we may bring some of those things back, right, at the right moment. So you need the right moment for it. I think Saturday was the right moment. We were looking for another time. If there was another third down or something like that, and a timeout, we were going to do it. It never really happened. So I'm glad we're going to get back into that. It's in my skill set. I've done it a lot. Let's do some of that. But I would like to bring back the wave. We did this thing. It was the slow motion wave. Everyone goes up slow and comes down slow. It feels ridiculous when you're doing it, but when you look across the stadium and everyone's doing it, it feels like this slow swell that's coming back. Now, the wave got a bad rap in the early 2000s. It was passé. People thought it was stupid. It was distracting. But it's been so long since we've done it that it's retro again. And it's new to people who have never done it. And they have not done the wave in more than 15 years. So if we brought it back now, it's retro, it's new for kids that have never done it. It looks really cool on the other side of the stadium when it comes around in a full stadium. I think we can do it again in the right scenario. We'll see. But people like badmouthed it, but enjoyed it at the same time. So let's just see if it catches on. If it doesn't, I have my one request granted. We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, I'll take one.
I mean, you could also throw a sponsor on it. Ocean City, Myrtle Beach. They got them all, Joel.
Hey, you're right.
Figure it out.
Now you figured it out. What's the one thing? Oh, the thing I also suggested is the thing I really wish people get more into, and we have to almost train them when they're freshmen. You know, that freshman night they do when they bring everybody together and take that cool picture. They should train them that night on our cheers. People don't know our cheers anymore. They don't even know how to spell out Maryland. When you look to the stands, during that, that band part at the beginning with the M, A, people don't do it. They don't know it. And so they got to be trained again on how to do that. That should be the loudest thing in the world to really get us going. I'm glad they brought back You Suck, right? That was banned for a while. They brought it back, and obviously that's a hit. But we really need to get people going on that Maryland again. But here's what I was saying sponsorship-wise. At the end of that, you spell it out. Go Terps. That Go Terps, they should sell that. Where you can be on the field with me, donor like gives whatever amount you want to say for it, or a sponsor, and then that person at the right moment gets on the mic and says, "Go Terps!" Like, no brainer, easy one. So I'm throwing out the ideas. It seems like Jim Smith's opened up our eyes. He came to all of us and was like, "What do you want to do? Let's talk about it. Let's go for it." So I love that attitude, and I think he's been a hit in every way you can imagine.
No, absolutely. My last one for you, Joel D, is pretty straightforward, but it's something I ask every guest we have. Mike's yours. What do you want to tell the Maryland fan base?
All right. Yeah, I kind of said it earlier. Find something you like about coming to a game. Find someone you like to come to the game with you, and then try to enjoy yourselves. I know I walk away disappointed as well. But if you can make the game more about the results in some way, it's your favorite beers that you drink with your buddies, or the tailgate game that you talk about. If it's a chant that you have in the stands with your friends, if it's the donut guy at the end, the hot lights on, find something that you enjoy about going to a Maryland football game and enjoy that part of it. And then if they win or play well, enjoy that part of it too. But hinging your enjoyment on the wins or losses, it's tough. I'm kind of like that when it comes to Washington Capitals. They're the ones that crush my heart the most, along with Maryland. But if you can come to a game and enjoy all those things and tell us what you want to do, well, we're open to add more things. But I think that's the key to being a sane Maryland fan when it doesn't always work out your way. Commiserating with your friends is part of that, and calling up your friends and saying, "No, this stinks. They should, fire everybody." But find those things that you enjoy about camaraderie, about being an alum, or just being a fan after all these years, and that's going to be the key to you enjoying yourself there, not just the wins and losses. Although that is very, very important. Don't get me wrong.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time, Joel D. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we will see you on the field soon.
All right, guys, let's go, Maryland. See ya.
And that was your Terps football MC, Joel D. Smith, who was kind enough to take the time, Jordan, to join us here on the podcast. Really, really interesting background, and we actually talked a little bit more after he jumped off the interview. And we're going to have him back on. We can get deep into some of the funniest things I've heard just about pro sports leagues that are trying to start up his involvement with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be honest, guys. I didn't really know what to expect with Joel D. I was excited to have him on, but I just didn't know what we were getting. Absolutely fantastic guy to talk to. And like Mason said, we actually did talk about having him back on to talk about some more just about his career, because it was very interesting. But Mason, let's just pick it up where we left off with him.
Well, Jordan, I got one thing that has to continue from that. I asked Joel towards the end what the tradition that he wants to bring back is, and the one that he wants to see more of is. And there's just something from the game on Saturday that I've just been thinking of. And I think I may have said it earlier. I know I've said it to you multiple times. Why we don't play the Hey You Suck song constantly through the game. I don't get it. It is the only thing, and Joel mentioned some other things they're trying to work on and build, which I appreciate. It's the only thing that seemingly unites our entire stadium and gets us going.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And the Nebraska fans thought it was fun. Like, it is fun. It's a good chant. It's a unique one. One of the few unique ones we have. So I do agree. I was actually waiting for you to say that to him, Mason. Maybe you will next time. Mason, let's go around the Big Ten. But before we do that, we can't even talk about it without talking about the biggest story in sports right now, one which we are closer than most to talking, or closer to. Penn State makes one of the riskiest decisions in the history of team sports in the U.S., paying $56 million to fire James Franklin in a move that, look, Joel's had his piece, and he's closer to the situation in Harrisburg and the news station up there. But from my perspective, and that's all I have, I don't agree with the decision, to be frank. I don't like James Franklin. I don't like Penn State. But I don't think he did a poor enough job to earn getting canned the way he did.
Yeah, I'm in an interesting space with this. These guys get paid these absurd amounts of money to lead these teams. And I'm trying to take that out of the equation when I talk about it, but I just can't. $56 million to tell somebody to go sit at home is just insane to me. But that's the deal that he warranted, and that's the deal that he kind of got out of Penn State. Look, I work with some people that root for Penn State. I'm sure you all know people that root for Penn State. They seem happy, so I guess it was the right move. That's the only thing I can land on. It's kind of what Joel was saying, is they refuse to accept mediocrity, and they put their money where their mouth is. And I do have respect for that. I don't respect a lot of things about Penn State. I do have respect for that. But that being said, the football may or may not get better. But this clearly wasn't working. And I think a lot of Maryland fans look at that and say the same thing about, what we're doing here. But you have to be able to stomach that. And for Pat Kraft, the AD, I guess he was there. Or the guys who really put up the money to make that whole place go are there. One or the other, Jordan. And that's really what matters. I don't think the product on the field will reach the level that it's been at here for a couple of years. I think that they're admitting to that and go in that direction. But they want rings at the end of the season. And they don't want Fiesta Bowl rings, Jordan. They want college football playoff national champion rings. And nothing about what James Franklin had done really looked like it was going to land them there.
That last point's a fair one. This is where I'll leave that discussion. And I'm sure it's one that we'll talk about for years to come. That's kind of where I'm going with this, actually. This decision will be one, for one way or another, that is going to be looked back on for years to come. Because there was a video that people were joking about with Penn State today. There's a tradition in Pittsburgh where the Pirates fans, there's a tradition they have where every year in October, they'll listen to the radio broadcast in the 1960s World Series that they won. The last one they did win. And it's become a bit of a joke in they're celebrating the last time they won because that was the last time they won. And someone captioned that, or tweeted that video out today and captioned it, "This will be Penn State in 2060 after firing James Franklin." And you do have to wonder, you really do have to wonder if this is one of those moves that sets the program back. Because the fact of the matter is, James Franklin, this is one of the most successful periods in Penn State history that we've just witnessed. And they're deciding to move on from that. For better or for worse. That's really what this is. This is going to be an inflection point looking back at the history of Penn State football, though.
Yeah, Jordan. And, I'm going to pull from some of the stuff that Joel D said. You remember the players in the teams. And I think that Penn State had plenty of those players. Just frankly, kind of like what Maryland's had. I'm not really drawing comparison. We're not as successful as them. But the young Penn State generation will, especially the Philly ones and the New York ones, they'll love Saquon Barkley for a long time. Saquon did a lot of things. I saw a meme of that stupid Trace McSorley song that I can't stand this last week. And you saw Sean Clifford's post on all his social media about this. And there's controversy around it, but I also think there's admission that it was time for it to happen. Here's what my hope is, though. Florida State, Texas A&M, Florida, Wisconsin, Nebraska. I would love to see Penn State written right under that they'll be saying that Penn State's back for the next 25 years because things can go sideways when this happens. And you know what, frankly, I think if they hire Matt Rule, they're right on track to put themselves in a worse place than they've been. He's won a lot of places, but when he's gotten somewhere big, which he is right now, just hasn't gotten there yet. He can make Baylor and Temple into a winner, Jordan, but couldn't fix the Panthers. Really, he's got an opportunity to fix Nebraska here, but let's face it, nothing's proven there. It's been a little bit of a disappointment. I can't see that. That's not an upgrade. What's the upgrade plan? And I think that's what a lot of these schools need to look at, because you'll end up being Florida. You might flash for a couple of years, or Florida State, you might flash for a couple of years, but without that Steve Spurrier, without that Bobby Bowden, without that Frank Beamer, without that Tom Osborne, without that Barry Alvarez, you're just not there.
A very prudent point, Mason, and that's kind of where I was indicating this was going to go, because a lot of the time you do see this go the wrong way. I can't think of an example where it went the right way, to be honest with you. Now I'm thinking about it. Can you? One, Notre Dame with Brian Kelly.
But did it, Jordan? They played for the BCS National Championship with him as the coach. They played for the College Football Playoff National Championship. Is it really better? Because Brian Kelly wasn't losing in Northern Illinois and Marshall.
Yeah, that's also true. Case in point, then, folks, if you guys have an example of one, and I do mean, just give me one time this has worked, I would love to hear it, because I can't think of any right now. Mason, other game from the Big Ten this weekend. Excuse me. Speaking of Nebraska, they played Minnesota on Friday night, and they're really hoping they get somewhere here. They're ranked this week.
Yeah, and I think they will. Minnesota, we've been talking a lot about Minnesota, and it's not great, but it's okay. And look, they could stay in this game for a while. I think that this is another test for like this Nebraska team. Can they continuously overcome teams that? And I don't really think they should have beaten us. I don't really think that's it. They should win this game though. Can they find a way to continuously win the games they should win? And that's where they're at right now. And this will be another one in that bucket.
The game is at Minnesota, by the way. A very interesting game now. One of the more interesting ones this week. And another just criminal big noon kickoff for the West Coast team. Washington will play Michigan at 9 a.m. Pacific time, Mason. These two teams are going in opposite directions. And I got to pick the Huskies on my end, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think it ends for Washington here. I think the Michigan defense is too good. They'll be able to take a lot of what Maryland was able to do and implement it, and they'll be able to execute it in the fourth quarter because you know what, Jordan? They can run the ball, and I think they will be able to do that. I got Michigan. The 9 a.m. start, it's got to go.
Yeah, it really does. Just an unappealing matchup here, to be frank. Purdue at Northwestern.
Yeah, I'm hoping the Cats can get something rolling here. This will be a third Big Ten win. Jordan, you keep calling them a poverty team, but suddenly they're going to have 3 conference wins.
Yeah, it's 2 more than we have. Ohio State, Wisconsin, which should be a bloodbath in Madison.
Yeah, and when does it stop and when does the road end for Luke Fickell? It's got to be coming. And this one could be epic in terms of beatdown level. Wisconsin seems like they're completely zoned out. They weren't engaged in that Iowa game. They had no defense. And look, I can't say enough good things about what Ryan Day's done with this Buckeye team. It is really, really good right now.
Michigan State travels to number 3 Indiana, Mason. If you ever thought you'd say number 3 Indiana in the sport of football, you should be playing the lottery at this point.
Yeah, and Aiden Childs is not playing good football right now, and it will be exposed against the Hoosiers. Look, Michigan State's in a bad spot right now. They're looking like one of the most disappointing teams in this league, right along the lines of Wisconsin. Can Jonathan Smith turn it around, Jordan? I don't know. It's a step down in year 2 for Sparty.
In a game that has complete beatdown revenge game written all over it, I'm sure very upset number 8 Oregon team travels Piscataway.
Yeah, and Rutgers, they're doing some soul searching right now up there. Is like Greg Schiano the guy? It seems like a lot of the same conversation, just a worse version of it, because it's Rutgers, the Mike Loxley one. And I think, like, I just can't see them competing in this game the way they've played. They found a way to shoot themselves in the foot, similar to us against, like, Iowa. They haven't really bounced back from that. They had the lead last week against Washington, couldn't finish that. I think that Dante Moore needs to put up big numbers in one of these games, and he'll have the opportunity to do that and be able to execute. And Piscataway, something, though, just doesn't seem all the way right about Oregon, and I feel like they could slide a little bit here. That's been a pretty common theme throughout the sport of college football, but I think Dan Lanning will have his guys ready to go.
I'm sure Peacock is happy they fell into this one, Mason. Penn State will travel to Iowa on the streaming service, which is just a disservice if you don't have it. I'm sorry, guys. But I don't even know what to think about this game at this point, Mason.
You have one team that's committed to longevity and is committed to their style of football, and another team that's doing soul searching. And Jordan, the Hawkeyes are finally going to get one back against Penn State. They have played so many close games against Penn State. They have found ways to lose them. I can't see it. A backup quarterback going into Kinnick at night is not a good place to be. I can't see Penn State bouncing back right now, and I really think the bowl game is in jeopardy for the Lions.
Hey, how about Iowa having 2 home games on Peacock this year? I don't know if that's ever happened in college football history.
Jordan, how about Iowa sneaky good? It's coming.
Yeah, it is.
2, baby. It'll happen.
And then the unquestioned game of the week in this conference, and a huge game for both teams involved, USC travels to Notre Dame. Mason, I'm picking the Irish, but this is an interesting game to watch, and I think it's pretty close to a push.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The only thing is Notre Dame's played so many big games. USC, you could call their game last week against Michigan the start of something, but it's not quite like this. The playoff hype train has started for Lincoln Riley. I think it might come to a quick end against Marcus Freeman's squad. And Jordan, look at that number next to that Notre Dame, 13. They're right outside the playoff window because, they're Notre Dame.
They are, and I do want to talk about that real quick. A lot of people are trashing Notre Dame's playoff thing, which it's not completely unfounded. They have lost to two top four teams by combined 7 points. It's kind of hard, and they should have beaten Texas A&M. They got hosed in that game. I think it's hard to say they should be in the playoff conversation.
Yeah, I think they belong in it, but that's simply because other teams haven't produced at the level they're supposed to. Your Texases, your Floridas, they're completely out of the picture at this point. Oklahoma's starting to drop games. They'll probably lose another one with no strong teams in the SEC. Georgia, another one. For Georgia, you're going into Ole Miss this weekend. If you lose, you're on the outside looking in, and you can't tell me that they're not the exact same as Notre Dame at that point. Alabama, another one. They have one loss. If they lose again, what do you do with these teams? And it opens the door for a team that plays a impossible schedule throughout the season, which is Notre Dame, and they're going to find their way right into the picture. Their brand name, as much as everyone likes to say, the brand name, does service and disservice at the same time. For Notre Dame, they're a national draw, and it will pull them ahead of other teams, as unfortunate as that may be. And look, on the eye test, as you mentioned, Jordan, they're pretty damn good.
Indeed, they are. Let's do trips in the NFL real quick, Mason, and swing over to Los Angeles. A bit of a down week for trips across the league. Spencer Anderson, though, a highlight for the Steelers, plays over 17 offensive snaps for the second straight week. But on the downside, Mason, Deonte Banks, I don't know if he's going to be a Giant next year.
Yeah, I don't think so, Jordan. Spencer Anderson's like the Steve Lombardozzi, for those of you that watched baseball, of the Steelers' offensive line. He can literally play every position, and guys like that stick around this league a long, long time.
Jacorian Bennett still on IR. Bo Brate plays 10 special team snaps for the New York Football Giants as they defeat the Eagles in a shocker. Corey Bullock, despite how bad the Ravens have been, and they have been bad, still only played one offensive snap.
Yeah, Tyler Lindenbaum stayed off that injury report. That's the only way the door is opening for Corey Bullock, behind one of the best centers in the league. Over to Indianapolis, Jordan Nick Cross, 5 tackles, picks up a tackle for loss, 1 pass defended, still looking like an all-pro there. Steph Diggs, after back-to-back 100-yard performances, he only gets 28 yards in the win over the Saints. But Jordan, the Patriots, they're surging right now, and that wide receiver room is getting it done.
Which I truly did not see coming, and I have a lot of friends who are Patriots fans, and they were all right about Drake May. 6 games in, though. Ty Felton on a bye in Minnesota. DJ Glaze starts again at right tackle and win for the Raiders. And Mason, speaking of firing coaches, the Titans fire Brian Callahan after only 6 games.
Yeah, and our guy Chiga Okonkwo, he actually had one of his better games of the season, 6 catches for 46 yards. But Jordan, these NFL teams, they are quick to fire. They're quick to fire quarterbacks. They're quick to fire coaches. I don't really love it, but it was not going the right way.
No, it was not. And Cam Ward was not looking happy there. Ruben Hippolyte does not play in the Bears' win over the Commanders in what was a gut-wrenching win for us, or loss for us Commanders fans. Mason, rivaling Maryland football on the scale there. Ty Johnson, Buffalo, speaking of disappointing losses, not the highest volume, but did produce 1 carry for 4 yards, but a catch for 11 yards. Mason, Ty, he's getting phased out in Buffalo, it looks like.
Yeah, and I don't like it. I think this offense is down. They're lacking creativity. He was a big part of that creativity. It's not good right now in Buffalo, and there's a lot of injuries. And a guy like Ty Johnson's been one of the guys that kind of bridges that gap, but I don't know. Something's off in the rhythm there. DJ Moore, 3 catches, 42 yards, 2 rushes for 10 against the Commanders. Sam Okinawu, again, 75% of his snaps come on defense for the 49ers, who just brutally injured roster at this point.
Yeah, Fred Warner goes out there. I don't know who's on the team at this point. Jordan Phillips, 2 assisted tackles, 26 snaps, 40% of the defensive snaps, and a Dolphins team that's being fired coaches. I'm sure Mike McDaniel's days are numbered in Miami. Chad Ryland, good day, 2 of 2 from field goals, both 40-plus yards and 3 through extra points. Mason, take it home.
Yeah, Darnell Savage, he's starting to get a lot of time for the Washington Commanders. 4 tackles, his highest total of the season. He plays 27 snaps. Tarheeb still 3 tackles, a pass defended. He returns a punt for 11 yards. Back to Miami with Dante Trader, 2 tackles, 17% of defensive snaps. Got a huge shout out this week, though, in their press conference. He plays 34 defensive snaps, 22 special team snaps as well. And Josh Woods, Jordan, the special team staple of the Atlanta Falcons, who pick up a big win over Buffalo. And now let's talk about the Terps trip out to Pasadena to the Rose Bowl.
Yes, Mason, and it is I don't know if critical is a strong enough word for this game, both for this season and for Mike Locksley's career, which has been unfortunate. Is this our first trip to the West Coast? No, we played Oregon last year. Second trip to the West Coast in recent program history, though. And it's a again, a huge spot. You have to think it might be over for this regime. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but it really might be if they lose this game. The Bruins are surging as well, and this is a bit of a weird spot where, you could paint it as two programs going in opposite directions, but I think it doesn't really fit because of how drastic UCLA's turnaround is. UCLA,
I don't think it fits because, like, are we really tanking right now? We lost 2 games by combined, 8 points?
That is correct. 7 points, actually.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the picture going into this game.
No, it's not. What I was going to say, though, and we have to talk about this, is how drastic UCLA's turnaround is. UCLA, Mason, 2 weeks ago, was a dead-in-the-water program. They were having a historically bad year. And then all of a sudden, they beat Penn State, which at the time was a huge deal. They killed Michigan State in the road. All of a sudden, you're looking like, wow, this UCLA team's surging. This team's really hot. They could do some damage. And lo and behold, here come the Terps.
Yeah, and is there anything more Maryland than this? Is one of the things that comes to mind. And look, UCLA was a team. Obviously, they go out and they get Nico in the portal, and it's this huge story. And they got their quarterback, and they're trying to find their way after last year's disaster and the whole Deshaun Foster thing, and then everything just falls through. What are we really expecting? Well, here's what you can expect, in my opinion, having watched these last couple games, is they took Nico Iamaleava and they started to really move him out of the pocket and utilize his legs, get him in some running situations, find a much, much better design for the talent they have. And I talk a lot about coaching, and those of you that listen to us on the post-game show, it's something that I've questioned about many teams when they lose. How do you position the guys on your roster to be in a place where they can succeed? Not that your system is better than any set of talent that you can bring in, or that you need to do things that are beyond your ability, but how can you take the guys that you have on the board and put them in a spot to be successful? If you look at the changes in UCLA's passing game, their protection scheme, the way they're utilizing the quarterback's legs, mainly in that Penn State game, they didn't really have to do it as much in East Lansing because he doesn't really like to run. If you look at his last couple seasons, they've really taken a different approach to that. They're having a lot of fun out there on the field. You can see the difference. I don't know if it was a lot of the coaches that were moved on from, or it's just something that's shifted when they're playing with freedom and all on house money. But you can really, really see it. Last week, I think the last time I looked, it was like 180 yards and 3 touchdowns from Nico. The week prior, he had probably one of his better games in terms of him willing his team to victory. Now enters Maryland. And I think one of the things you're going to see from the Terps is the aggression in the pass rush return. We didn't really see it as much this last week. Sidney Stewart wasn't able to get home. You're playing against a team that has not been able to protect their quarterback well. Denied Dennis Sutton and Zane Durant did get pressure for Penn State, but it was just a disaster of lack of preparation. This game, to me, is the apex of who we want to be. It's not necessarily who we are, but it's who do we want to be, which then dictates sometimes in life who you are. Do we want to fold? Do we want to come out with minimal effort? Do we want to not prepare and really lock in on these 2 games of film for a team that feels like it's brand new, like it's week 3 for them? Or do we want to overcome what's happened in the past 2 weeks, go out on the road, reassert ourselves as a team that's solidly in this season, that's chances are not over yet to succeed their goals, and come back home going into that bye week and maybe playing the number 1 team in the country the week after? But who do you want to be, Jordan? That's my question of the week.
Well, Mason also does motivational speaking on the side if anyone's curious. You are right. I mean, this is, like I said, a defining game for Maryland, much more than UCLA. But let's talk about the Bruins real quick. And one thing that does scare me a little bit is UCLA has found somehow one of the best rushing attacks in the Big Ten. They're averaging 4.9 yards to carry, Mason. And like you said, Nico's running ability has fundamentally changed this offense. He's their leading rusher. He has over 300 yards on the ground this season, most of which has come in the last 2 games. They have 2 good running backs. And sorry, let me take their names up here. I have in my notes. Woods and Thomas, both over 200 yards this season. And they split carries pretty evenly. I mean, it wasn't a problem until last week, Mason, which is really strange because Jonah Coleman visited the week before. But Nebraska gashed us on the ground like no one has this season. And UCLA is another team that comes in here with the ability to just run the ball. And you talk about being who you want to be, you have to stop the run. I mean, people talk about it all the time. If you're a Commanders fan, you saw it yesterday. When teams run the ball on you, it's a morale killer. It makes you feel like you can't stop them because the running attack, if you can't stop it, you can't stop it. It's not like passing where you can change schemes or whatever. You can change schemes to run the ball, but ultimately, you get pushed out of the way. You got pushed out of the way. How do you, Mason, if you're calling this defense, try to balance stopping the run with Nico's throwing the ball pretty well too, but you got to stop the run first. They're averaging 5 yards a carry.
Yeah, it was some ridiculous tackling stat for Maryland last week, and I think that's it. If we tackle last week, we win the game. We got to be able to tackle. When we get our hands on guys, we got to knock them back. We got to bring them to the ground. We got to finish the play. And as I looked back to last week and looked at some of the clips that we shot earlier today, our tackling was just atrocious. Zahir Mathis and Sidney Stewart had their hands on guys. They had them bottled up in the backfield. They didn't finish. Dede Holmes and Nasir Taylor, I don't know if Dede hadn't really practiced much. Kind of looked like it. Nasir Taylor, obviously coming off the injury, didn't really look like himself. But it was every single guy. I know I just threw out a couple of days. It was everybody. Daniel Wingate, who's been a machine this season, could not get guys to the ground. You want to play a team that's going to run the ball, Jordan? They ask you what kind of day you're having before you get out there and how hard you want to go. Because if you don't want to go hard, if we don't want to finish the plays, if we don't want to commit to do things right, and we're just going out there and not necessarily going through the motions, but we're either overly hyped or we're not finishing plays or we're just not playing to the whistle, well, you're going to get beat. The example clip that I would throw up there would be from last night. DeAndre Swift's on the sideline. Juan Martin's got him. Marshawn Lattimore could come in and clean up the play. They both just decide the guy's going to run out of bounds. He runs for a touchdown. The week before, I would have put up the clip of, DeMarcado running into the end zone and dropping the ball before. There are examples at every level in this game that you can show your team. And, yeah, it might all be coach speak to those of you who like to judge Coach Mason on the show. But it does mean something to these guys. You have to set the example. And sometimes you have to look elsewhere and then compare it to yourself to really find resolution of that issue. For us, it's got to be cleaning up the tackling. This team is beatable in every way. Right now, they're hot. Yeah, they can come out. They can have some hype. Look at the 4 games before that. Tells you all you need to know. They're not a good football team. In fact, they're a bad football team. But you can't have that mindset. Every week you have to come in. How can I prepare and how can I play to my fullest extent? Last week it just didn't seem like we were really there on defense. We weren't really executing. We were making the plays. We were there to make them. We couldn't finish them and it cost us.
Very well said, Mason. I'll even use my nutritional line. Can't say any better than that. But you are right. And if it's not clear, folks, we are still perturbed by the Monday night disappointment we suffered last night as Commanders fans. It was a tough one to watch. But you talked about them being a bad team. Here's one for you. UCLA is favored by 3.5 points in this game.
Yeah, Vegas is buying into them. A lot of people are buying into them. I, for one, I don't know what to think yet. This game honestly will dictate it for me. I think from our perspective, let's take a look at what some of these teams can do, right? We've seen some of our old friends play them, Jordan. Anthony Calandria, the quarterback at UNLV that played against this UCLA team earlier in the season. He was able to kind of light it up. And you know what? He didn't really throw that many interceptions, which is a rarity for him in that game. So I think you could pass the ball. I think that a lot of people are looking at our passing attack and really not believing in it. It hasn't been a ton of completions against the Bruins, but there's been a lot of touchdowns through the air. It really looks to me like what you're going to have to do is find a way to get Malik Washington heated up. And we really, to do that, I really, really think from just a theory perspective, the 1-yard passes have got to go. We can throw the safety valve to the running back or the safety valve to Farouk. We have got to get the ball going vertically down the field. We've got to take shots at another team, get them backed up out of the box, open some things up for this run game. I liked what they did when they moved the pocket a little bit and got Malik kind of running the ball. He's got to finish plays. He's got to get more comfortable. And we got to let this guy do what he can do best, which is hurt the teams deep on the outsides and vertically down the field. He's not a dink and dunk quarterback. If you go back and look at his success in high school, he lets the ball rip. Maybe he's not there yet. Maybe they're protecting him from making those errors. But let's see something a little different. We saw the kill shot against Wisconsin. Beautiful deep ball down the middle. Why have we tested the last two opponents we've played when we're outside the 30-yard line, the opposing team's 30-yard line, and we're trying just to hit a seam route? Let's see it go down the field. Let's get some of these receivers heated up and feeling good about life, and let's get after it.
With Mason on the mic there. One other note as far as UCLA, their defense, specifically the run defense, is one of the worst in college football, clocking in at 124th in rushing yards allowed per game at nearly 200, Mason. But here's the thing with college stats. I feel like if you're not a college football fan, maybe more of a pro fan, it's fine. But you might not know this as much, is how much you're dictated by situations, Mason. Because I say, oh, they've allowed 200 rushing yards per game. You say, the answer was they've been trailing the entire season.
Yeah, I mean, there is that piece of it too, Jordan. I'm not really into the stat packing of really like looking at these teams. Like, yeah, they haven't been good in a lot of ways, but what have they done the last 3 weeks? I'll give you the Northwestern 17-14 loss into that too. They've gotten a lot better in a lot of different areas. And I think when you really look at this, you see the same things. What are the consistencies? They've given up not a lot of passing attempts because, as you just mentioned, right, they've been trailing for so much of it. But you see numbers like 16 for 21 for 220 and 4 touchdowns. That means they're just not stopping anything. So how can we get our guys heated up? How can we get them going vertically down the field? Because if you give a team opportunity like this, they will take it. They'll be on their home field. I have no idea what the attendance is going to look like in this game. Like, it's random in every way. The attendance at UCLA has been absolutely atrocious. There was a piece in the LA Times absolutely roasting UCLA's athletic department earlier this season for their sold tickets versus scanned tickets number that they had published. I really just, I don't know. And I think that's what a lot of people in the college football landscape and the betting landscape, honestly, have been thinking too right now. They just don't really know. And to your point that you earlier said, a surging team against a team that's dropped 2 heartbreakers, that's kind of known to crumble as a program. A lot of people got to be looking at this one thinking the Bruins are gonna start to be a threat to somehow salvage a winning season.
And that is true. And I think this is really a wait and see game. I think a lot of the time, to be frank, we have better analysis before these games.
Yeah,
this is a hard one to predict. It really is a nearly impossible one to predict. There's so many variables in this that are just you don't know what's going to happen. You really don't.
I'll counter that with the most coach speak thing I think I could possibly say, and that this might be my final point on it. A game like this to me looks like one thing. How can we dictate what we can dictate? How do we control what we can control? The tackling, the blocking, the effort, the mental piece of the game. Not doing stupid things that cost us 15 yards at a time and embarrassing ourselves on national media. How do we control those moments? And then as a coach, what can I do to help my team finish the game? Can we talk about it more? Can we set some examples? Can we bring some people in from the outside to talk to our team? Can we just practice the hell out of it? What can I do between last Saturday? I'll take it 2 weeks before the Saturday previous, but let's take it week to week. What can we do in our installs through the middle of the week to prepare our guys to go out there and play a full football game with a winning attitude, a winning mindset, and really showcase what we can do as a team? Because I'm telling you, the guys on that field are some of the most talented people I've seen wear the Terps jersey in Mike Locksley's tenure. And frankly, as coaches, we're not putting them in that position that I talk about to succeed because we're making mental errors on game day in the biggest moments that are not affording our team the opportunity and putting them in the best place to win. It starts at the top. I can't believe I've said that so many times in this podcast. Those of you that listen to us every week probably are like, find some different words for it. But it all starts at the top. And I question a little bit of the preparation that's gone in because we're ready to go at certain times, and at certain times we look like that same old Terps line that Mike Locksley wants to, get out of everyone's mouth. We got to find a way to play the full game and to execute at the highest level and to coach to our advantage and not just to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think that does sum it up. It's all about what we can control. No, we put so much effort, Mason, into researching the other team, partially, almost entirely, because we know the Terps pretty well, which leads us to talk about them more. But it's time to look inward as a program. It really is. you really could say we've lost the last 2 games more than we won them. I was giving Nebraska credit. They really did come and take it. Same with Washington. But ultimately, we're Maryland podcast. We're winning both these games. You let them slide through. You, as a program, need to prove everybody wrong. It's time. It's really now or never if you're Mike Loxley.
And in Jordan, it's a beautiful time for that. Because Virginia Tech is a disaster. Virginia, they're not really our competition anymore when it comes to recruiting this area. Penn State, who we compete against for every single guy that's really legitimately talented from here, that wants to stay anywhere close to home, they're gone. They're off the map right now. South Carolina is reeling. We have a chance to assert ourselves with the help of our movement, the Free Grandma movement, rolled into Zion Ely, rolled into some of these other guys that we've been able to pull in. We have a chance to clean up this area, to win at a level both on the field and off the field that we have been looking for a long, long time. To do that, though, you got to win games like this. You got to say, like, hey, we're a 5-2 and 500 Big Ten team that's lost these games, and you can make the difference if you come play here. You can be the hero that finishes the job for us. We got to win and compete every single game. We got to be in it to the end, and we got to find a way to win this and change our own narrative, because we talk a lot about fan support here, and these guys that are picking between our school and others, they see the negativity. They see the results. The results can speak for themselves. We got to get to that level. This is a chance to do it. With that said, Jordan, I feel like a curse when I pick the Terps, but I'm going to pick them again. And I just think there's 2 guys that are going to change this game. 2 guys that were picked as on-3 freshman All-Americans in the midseason. Zahir Mathis and Sydney Stewart. They're going to own this game. They're going to take it upon themselves to make the plays that it takes to win the Terps the game. And then a guy who I think's been kind of flying under the radar, he had a great opportunity to make a huge play last week and he didn't, is Dylan Fontes. I think the Terps rush will get home. They'll change the game. The defense will continue to force the turnovers. And I think the Terps are going to kind of break this one open and show a lot of people up in this game. Give me Maryland 34-17.
Wow, that's a big one. I don't know if I can say all that, but I'd love to not make a pick in this because I don't know how I feel, but I gotta keep believing. If I don't believe, why am I going out to Pasadena, Mason? So I'll give it to the Terps, and I'll say we gotta score a lot of points. UCLA has scored points the last few games. I'll give you the same Maryland number though. Maryland 30, UCLA 24. We gotta hope it gets better today. Mason,
I don't think there's hope.
Get this
I think there's just I'm gonna change it, Jordan, for you. Hope's one word for it. I think belief is another. And I think we need to believe that if we execute our game the way that's prescribed by the coaches, that we'll come out with the victory. A lot of proving needs to be done to not making that line look like stupidity come this time next week. But I think that's got to be the phrase inside the locker rooms. How can we believe in the execution of what we're trying to do together, not individually, into winning the game? That's belief more than it is hope. We may hope as fans. These guys need to believe.
That's a good way to put it. Mason, one thing I do want to hit up really quick that we missed earlier in the show, because it's getting almost time. A couple basketball notes. The Maryland women's basketball team clocked in at number 10 in the country preseason, Mason. Second in the Big Ten, only to UCLA. You mentioned it earlier, maybe a week ago, that the Terps have not won the Big Ten in several years in women's basketball. I think they used to be pretty regular. This could be the year, Mason. There's a lot of hype. There's not a clear-cut number 1 team in women's basketball. I think he's talking about expectations a lot. I'm putting the title, or you know what? I'll put a Final Four on Brenda Friese's team this year. I think it's a good one for them. And I'm excited to watch them play because, unlike the men's team, we've seen these girls before, and they're pretty good.
Yeah, I think they added a lot of pieces through the portal that will help them reach that level. Jordan, we got to get back. We got to find a way to get back to that apex of the sport, and I think this roster can definitely do it. On the men's side, it's like the world of unknown. You know, it's so strange to be in this portal spot that we're in. New coach, new era, and I really think that it's sort of weird. We were in the tournament picture kind of solidly a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Now we're kind of on the outside. The bubble pick is kind of where we're at right now. I think that's just the Big Ten media not really being in love with Maryland, and the national picture kind of buying into the preseason predictions, if you will. It's so hard to know, but the expectation, I think, regardless of what the situation is here, at a minimum, is making the NCAA tournament, and that's the expectation I'm going to put on that side.
I would have to agree with you. I mean, we'll talk about it during the bye week next week, but I can write a book on my thoughts on the state of college basketball right now, and you guys will get to hear that book next week when we talk hoops. But until then, Mason, go Terps. You got a huge game in Pasadena this week, and if we don't win this one, I don't have a plan, so they better win this one, I believe.
We'll have full coverage from LA. Jordan and Wayne are heading out there to see the Terps in the Rose Bowl. A little bit jealous of you guys here, sitting here on a Tuesday night recording this, knowing that I'm not going out there to LA, but you guys have a great time out there. Get a lot of content for the Terps here back home, and you can catch all that on our YouTube channel, and then we're back here on the podcast on Sunday. As always, go Terps, and thanks for listening.